I'm Julie Herman of Jaybird Quilt and Lazy Girl Designs, and welcome back to the Lily Sew Along. Today we're going to be working on assembling the cover and the lining. Let's get started. The steps we're going to follow are on page 12 of the paper pattern, page 10 if you have the PDF, and we are going to put our two outside cover pieces together. One thing to note is we will be using a lot of pins, and if you know me from quilting, I'm generally a minimalist with pins, but not with bag making. Bag making, I use a lot of pins. So the first place we're going to pin is our bottom center, and since we pressed our seams in the opposite directions, we're going to be able to go ahead and nest those seams. So go ahead and nest those seams and then put one pin in on either side. Now the next place we want to pin is where our waistband seams match up. Now both of these are pressed up, so we won't be able to nest them. So simply line them up on top of each other as best as you can. And I like to place a pin right below the waistband seam, and then I like to place a pin right above the waistband seam, and then one more at the top of the bag. And if you have added decorative ribbon like I have, I suggest you keep the pins away from the ribbon. They can damage the delicate fibers of the ribbon, so I like to pin below and above in that case. I'm going to repeat on this side. And this is what it looks like now. And if your piece is like mine and kind of in this direction, go ahead and push it up like this so that these pieces will begin to lay flat. And I'm now going to begin to pin around my curve, stop when I get to my dart, and pin around my curve down as well. And I'm going to repeat on this side. Now that I have both curves pinned, it's time to go ahead and take care of these darts. On my outside covers, I'm going to go ahead, and the darts right now should be standing straight up. I'm going to push them down towards the bottom of my bag and add one more pin. And repeat on this side to point it down as well. Now I'm going to set this aside for a moment. The directions for doing the lining are on page 13, page 11 if you have the PDF. I wanted to quickly show you another option. If you don't want to use pins, you can go ahead and use sewing clips. They serve the same purpose. The difference with the lining is you don't have a center seam to line up, and we want to have our pleats go up instead of down. It's kind of like if you know my split the bulk trick when I talk about binding, it'll split the bulk when we go ahead and assemble the bag later on. So I'm just going to take two more clips and clip those up. And then the one other difference between the lining and the outside is that we need to leave an opening here so we'll be able to turn our bag right side out. And I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes I get too eager at the machine and I keep going and then all of a sudden realize I've sewn where I wasn't supposed to and I have to unpick my stitches. So what I find works best for me is I like to take two pins and I like to make an X. It still holds the project in place, but it gives me a visual cue to stop. Something's going on if I have an X. So this way I'll sew down to here, stop, pick up, sew up to there. Let's head over to the machine with our cover and our lining. I'm over at my machine with my pinned cover, and I'm going to begin sewing around with a 1/4 inch seam. One quick last thing to note is if you had some seam issues and your waistband is longer or your bag, you can do a more generous seam here if needed. You could do 3/8 of an inch, whatever is needed to get everything to kind of even out, as they say. So have no fear, everything can always come together in one way or another. I am going to backstitch at the beginning and end of this seam. And I'm going to use a stiletto, and I'm going to remove my pins as I go. You never want to sew over your pins, and the stiletto will help keep seams from flipping, help keep everything nice and down as I sew around my bag. I'm going to speed up the recording of this for you, but I'm going to just slowly and gently sew around the bag. Be careful at my curves, make sure that my darts stay how they need to be. There's no hurry to get around as fast as you can. I'm going to repeat the same steps with my lining. And I'm going to stop just a little bit past my dart and go ahead and backstitch. My X's are my cue to myself, and then I'll pick back up on my other side before my other dart. We've sewn around our lining and our cover, and now the pattern says to press. And there's really only one area that needs pressing right now, and that is these upper seams. This is where our handle is going to go in our next step, and so we want to open up our seam for this top area and press this open to aid in our handle installation in our next step. Just give it a little press, and if you end up pressing your waistband, kind of press out whatever you press. Do the other side. I'm going to repeat these steps with the cover. The last thing I want to show you is a trick I learned once from Joan, and that is to give a memory down here before we do the rest of our bag, so that once we get to the part of sewing this closed, we know where to do it. And so what that means is right now we've had a 1/4 inch seam everywhere. We're going to fold this up 1/4 inch. We're going to finger press it. Then we're going to bring our iron over, and we're going to create a memory seam. And so what that is going to do, and we're going to do it on the other side as well, is it's going to show us what to fold in when we need to fold our pieces in and do our final stitching. By having this, we're not going to kind of be guessing and end up with too scant of an 1/8, too much at 3/8. We have this memory fold more than a memory seam. Memory fold to know where our seam is, I guess I should call it. I don't know that Joan had a specific name for it, but we're just going to do a little bit of pressing, and that way, you know, our lining will eventually be like this, but I'm going to turn it right side out because that's what we need for our next step anyway. I will show you what this will do. By having that pressed in, it definitely works better on the lining than on the side with the fleece, but by having that pressed in, when we go to pin and clip this in place, it's much easier to line everything up. Thanks for watching today. In the next video, we're going to add our handle and finish our bag. Please be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos in the sew along. If you have not yet signed up for sew along emails, you can do that in the caption below. See you soon.